Hi, my name is John Michael. I'm gonna do a rundown of my assignment 4. I'm gonna talk about the code step by step and go through the questions. First question is down the test CSV file and store in a data frame named MyDF. So first I import pandas as PD, read the CSV file, and then save it as MyDF through a data frame. Question 2 is show the first 3 rows of the DF. So I did mydf.ilook. ilook basically lets us call any specific column. Um, this way we did semicolon 3, so we can call the first 3. Question 3 is delete the model column from the DF temporarily. So it's basically asking us not to use in place because in place lets us delete the column permanently. So we simply just did drop, which basically drops the model column axis 1 so it knows where it is. Question 4 is delete the model column permanently using the assignment not in place parameter. So a different way of deleting it permanently without using the in place parameters. So question 4, I just did del space mydf and then the specific column. Um, question 5, let's delete rows 1, 3, and 5 permanently using in place, then show the first 4 rows. So as I said, in place does help us delete something permanently. So mydf.drop 1, 3, 5. So we're staying the rows. Axis equals 0, so we know that we're staying rows, not the not the column. And then in place equals true, so it can delete it on the original data frame. And then mydf.alloc 4 semicolon form to call the first 4 rows. Now it says 0, 2, 4, 6, so we know that 1, 3, and 5 is deleted. Question 6, calculate the mean of range column. So simply we do dot mean method because the dot mean method can basically calculate the mean of the specific column. So we called range and then dot mean, and then the range is 297. Question 7, how many Fs do we have in the type column? Replace it permanently with AAA and show the first 5 rows. So first I saved the type column as S, so for simplicity. And then to calculate it, I did sorry, to see how many S we have, we do mydf type, we're calling the type column, and equal equals F. And then this way we see how all the Fs in the column. Um, replace them permanently with AA, and basically we do the same thing, but state that type, and then say equals AA to replace all the Fs. And now when we call head, like the first 5 rows, we can see that some of the Fs, or all of the Fs, are now AA. Question 8, get rid of the column, money sign, and the other column from the cost column permanently and display the first 5 rows. So string dot replace helps us replace it helps us replace some anything in the row with something else. So you need to have the old value or the old string and then put it as a new, whether you want it space or any other thing. So first thing first, we want to do mydf cost, so we know mydf cost equals, so we know that we want to assign something within the column. Next we do string replace, what we want to replace and what we want to replace it with. So we want to replace it with an empty space. And now we do mydf.head to call the first 5 columns, and we can see first 5 rows, and we can see that the first 5 rows, they no longer have the column and the money sign. What is the type of cost column? Simply just do type and then the within the parameter cost, and it'll say it's a series. Question 9, change the cost column data type to an integer and display the result. Simply do as type and it'll simply change it. So as I said again, we do equal signs mydf cost to change something within the column, and then we just do mydf as type int, and then now the cost is an int. Question 10, calculate the average cost column, then calculate the average cost for each continent. So mean and average is basically the same thing, so we do not mean, and we get 54. The average is 54. Next we want to know the calculate the average cost for each continent. And to do that, we do group by. And group by basically helps us group two columns together and calculate the mean using the dot mean at the end. So I did mydf dot group by continent, and then cost, the other column you want to group it with, and then dot mean to calculate the average. And this is basically the average for each continent. Next is calculate the mean, max, and standard deviation. Now it's the same thing, but instead of dot mean, we use dot agg so we can calculate not just using one method. Dot agg, we do min, max, SCD. SCD stands for standard deviation, and now min, max, and SCD is within its own columns. Question 12, calculate the min, max, and standard deviation of all numerical columns grouped by each column in one command. So first thing first, I saved a variable called mydfNumeric, and within mydfNumeric, we're basically selecting the data frame, but instead of the typical mydf, we're doing select underscore data type. So it's selecting the data frame using the specific data type, and simply we just do include equals number to get only numeric numbers as our data frame. Um, mydfNumeric.log continent. So we're trying to make the continent equal to the original my data frame continent, and then group by same thing, but as underscore index equals false, and then dot agg min max scd like we did from before. And then as you can see here, it's doing the same thing, but only numerals. Question 13, illustrate the mean of all numerical columns grouped by continent using a bar chart. So first we have to do matplotlib to inline to implement the plot library. Next we do the same thing, but instead of min max SCD, we do mean. Now we could have done the same thing as we did up here, but for simplicity's sake, so we can see better on what we're trying to do and understand, we do dot agg, and then dot plot at the end to say what type of plot we want, and obviously we do kind equals bar, and then this is it. Question 14, count the number of each continent in the continent column. So value underscore counts basically counts that for us. So we say what column and then value dot underscore counts. Question 15, show the percentage of each continent in the content column. Saying normalize equals true will turn it into a decimal value, basically percentage. Question 16, show only unique values. So dot unique will help us call out all the unique values in the continent column. Uh, Question 16, show the unique values that we have in continent column, then show the number of unique values that we have in continent. So the numbers. So uh, the number of uniques, so okay, sorry. So the unique value dot unique basically shows the unique values, and then doing none of n unique shows us the number of unique values. Question 17, use the value underscore count method for the cost column and describe the output as a comment in the next cell using the hashtag for the comment. So value underscore counts basically helps us show all the unique values. But since cost is only filled with unique values, it's showing many values to one. So it's showing only the unique values, because value underscore counts basically only basically calls the unique values. Question 18, plot a histogram this time. So same thing, we call the library and then plot kind equals hist. Question 19, try to change the bins to 50 to show the result more accurately. So same thing, but just bins equals 50. Question 20, how many missing values do we have in the zip code column? How many missing values in the type column? Provide a brief summary of null values for the entire data frame. So is null dot sum. Is null basically is calling a method to show all that's null, but since we did dot sum in the end, basically sums it all up. And as you can see in zip code, we have 9 nulls. Type, we have 2. Same thing. Um, Brief summary of null values. Null values are basically data frames that are basically described as missing values, so there is no value within the column. Question 21, if we drop all the rows that we have, any missing values, how many rows will remain in my DF? So, mydf.shape basically allows us to see how many rows we have in general. So in general we have 947. If we drop all the any rows, we would have 936. So in general 936 and 947, we would have dropped, sorry, 11 rows. So 936 rows would be left, and we would have dropped 11 rows. Question 22, show the statistics of type column using the value underscore count method, including the NaN values in the list. How many missing values do we have? So this time we want to say, um, we want to show how many values within the column, but also include the NaN, which is not a number. So even include that, so even show it. So by doing that, we just do drop NA equals false because by default it's always true. And here you can see it's NaN and there are 2 uh, NaN values. Question 23, replace the type column missing value with XXX. Um, so we just do fill NA, which basically fills all NA values as XXS, and then in place true to overwrite it into the original data frame. Question 24, drop the rows that have missing values permanently and show the numbers of rows after running the drop command. So basically it's drop NA, but this time in place true. So we want to overwrite in the original content. Question 25, set the ID column as a new index and delete the index name. Then show the first 5 rows of my DF. Show the variable the cell that is ID is 70 and its column header is value. So we do set underscore index ID to set ID as the new index. In place equals true to overwriting the original data. And then as you can see when we call the first 5 columns, it's here. Next when we do mydf.location 70 and value, basically we're saying we want to see this 70th ID, 70th index in the value columns, we get 27. Question 26, show the index column and the shape of the current DF. Bring back the ID column to the DF and reset the index. Again, show the index columns and the shape of the current DF. Same thing. Sorry, not do what's told and then do the same thing. So first thing first, we do we show the index, column, shape. These are the columns and shape and the index. When we do reset underscore index, we're basically calling the method to reset the index and in place it as true to re-overwrite the original content. And if we do that, then um, ID becomes columns again, and everything's back to normal. Question 27, use the describe method to see the statistics of MyDF and fetch the value of the first row and the third column. So mydf.location to get the specific location, we picked 1 and 3 and then dot describe, so it's describing 1 and 3. Mydf continent, question 28, sort the value counts of the continent column of the DF, then sort the value counts of the continent column based on alphabetical order. So basically we don't really need to like change anything. We can do everything all in one because by default it's always ascending in alphabetical order. So we don't need to do 2 different lines. We can just do both questions in one line. So basically mydf.value counts dot sort value. So we call the value unique values and then sort it. Question 29, show all columns for the following rows 1, 3, 5, 7 and show the first 7 rows. So same thing, 1, 3, 5, 7 and then it will show sorry, call the location 1, 3, 5, 7 and then call the specific uh, columns type and continent dot head 7. Usually the head method calls the first 5 rows, but if you put 7 within, it'll call it the 7 row. Question 30, show the value of the type that are equal to xxx. Basically the same thing we did previously up here. Sorry, like this, but instead with xxx. And yeah, and this is my assignment.